So in this Usrah in Actions 1, this is where we would like to further expand the discussions and also further discuss and put all the discussion that we had in the previous class, in the previous course, into actions. Our beloved students, this is called Usrah in Actions, is URA. But we also like to give some ideas that this URA is also stands for Ummah in Actions, meaning that here is where we are thinking about the Ummah. Yeah? But more than just thinking about it, we are talking about putting Ummah in actions. Yeah? So the word in action is the one that differ this class, this course with the previous one, and several and many other classes which does not involve actions in detail. Yeah. This URA also would like to be associated with university in actions. Right? We learned in the previous course, your NTS 1201, that we see the role of university contributing towards sustainable development. So here we want to break down university into actions again, right? And then we go further detail to it. Yeah, the Usrah, and then the lowest unit, the smallest unit is ourselves. It is you in actions. Yeah? I purposely put in this way so that you have the big picture, the big ideas that we are now talking about from the biggest level, that is the Ummah. Yeah? And then we go to level of university, and then we go to the level of Usrah, we go to the level of you yourself, right? And the other two important word is in actions. All right, I would like to give some ideas that when we talk about this course, when we introduce this course, when we develop this course, we have in mind that what we need at the moment with the pressures, COVID, with whatever that's happening out there, is a different kind of learning. Yeah? That learning that we would like to expose here in this in this CCUB 2163 is a kind of transformative learning. Yeah? What do we mean by transformative learning is that it has 5 criteria. One, the learning that we like to expose in this class that want for the students to be able to take place is for you all to be able to somehow talk to the other students from different kuliah, because the problems out there is not just from one disciplinary perspective. It's either interdisciplinary, or is a multidisciplinary, or is even transdisciplinary. Yeah? We have learned about this in the previous subjects, that interdisciplinary is 2 subjects, multidisciplinary more than 2. And we talk about transdisciplinary is whereby issues is no longer seen from disciplinary perspective. Like for example, climate change. We don't have a department of climate change, yeah, and at least in our university, and we don't have kuliah of climate change. That means that we would like to go beyond the conventional way of how knowledge has been divided. Yeah, and together with that is the word integrated, and that's what knowledge in Islam is. Yeah, is somehow it must be integrated. It cannot just be seen as either from disciplinary perspective, or is either for worldly perspective only. Yeah, it's an integrated perspective how to see the problem, how to see the solutions. Yeah? So the second component is that it has to combine. We know the usual conventional assessments is that you have final exam at the end. Yeah, if you have to subject the final exam, they risk a kind of like tendency to somehow put everything at the end, and we would tend to somehow focus on memorizing, focus on just preparing ourselves towards the final exams. But here in this class, what we are emphasizing is the whole important process of that learning. So that's what we mean by experiential learning. That's what we mean by transformative learning. Yeah. So for that purpose, you would see the assessments is not only final exams or even the subject. There's no final exam. And you can recall for the class 1201, there's no final exams. Yeah. And I hope you can recall then that the pressure of final exam is not there. So you get to enjoy more of the subjects rather than the discussion, rather than worrying about the final exams. Yeah. So that's what we mean by formative and summative assessment. We need the technical knowledge. We need to test the cognitive skill. Yeah, we do have quiz in 1-201, for example, but that's not the only way of testing or giving assessment to the student. Yeah, we'll talk later on what will be the assessment system of this subject, of this course. And then as a university, it has to be research-based. So the same goes to this course, yeah? And the same goes to the process of learning that you've gone through before. And it is a community engaged, and then actions and solutions oriented. So with these 5 components, what we're doing actually try to transform the experience of learning of yourself, of ourselves, for example, yeah? So these are the 5 components that we are doing the same thing in this course of CCUB 2163. And this is Usrah in actions. All right, that is a background of the previous course and the plan to continue the same kind of approach to CCUB course, the course that you're taking now. All right, as usual, like previous course as well, that we'd like to start with several questions that we hope to set up the common ground among us, yeah, for students to discuss and for the instructors and the students to discuss. We've put up these questions before, yeah, in the previous class. Yeah. First one is that for us to look at the kind of education that we're receiving, yeah, is there anything wrong about it? Yeah, this is something to be discussed in our class too. Yeah. Is there anything wrong? Everything right? If it is right, there's nothing wrong. What has caused the kind of social problem that we have out there? The kind of economic corruption that we have out there, the kind of environmental degradation that we have out there, right? Because these people gone through schooling system, these people gone through education systems. Yeah, are we giving the right education? What is wrong? Is it the content of education? Is it the approach of education? Is it the pedagogy? Is it the methodology? Yeah. So there must be something wrong or something that is not that right, need to be improved. Yeah. And then the second question, which is very relevant to our context of this course, is that do education institutions teach what society needs or what industry needs? Yeah. So here, the CCUB is bringing us closer to that subject, to that issues of how to serve the society, how to work with the society, how to live in the society, how to live together in the society. Yeah. To a certain extent, you will see that the education that we receive, especially at university level, is so much emphasis on the occupational needs, yeah, the industrial needs, yeah, employability need. Though we know that now that is so much in question as well. Yeah. So the third question is that is school a factory towards job employment or a balanced character building process? Yeah. This is a continuation to the second question. Yeah. We'd like to see now in this course that you are being prepared, not just as a component of a factory-like kind of process where you are being moved from one point to another point as a product, and then finally graduate, and then are you ready to be employed as employee? Yeah, we are preparing you. Yeah, most importantly, we are preparing you not just for that. Yeah, of course, we don't deny the need for that job, so employment, but we are equally important emphasizing whether you are ready and expose you to the skill that needed to serve to become a member of society, right? COVID, for example, has really shown us for clear that the social issues, the societal problem, the problems that happen in the surrounding community need so much attention. And please reflect yourself whether you learn anything during your university time, but how you need to be prepared for that. Apart from maybe if you get involved in the society, in club, you may be exposed to that. Yeah. But apart from that, in the formal curriculum, are you being exposed? Are you being trained for that? Okay. And the last question is, does university education prepare you to face pandemic? Yeah. This is the most important question, yeah, that triggered this kind of change in our subjects. Yeah. We thought that, I mean, we know for sure that pandemic has put so much pressure in the university to somehow change its orientations. It helped stop the face-to-face class for a while. Yeah, of course, now we are going back to hybrid systems, but is the content of educations emphasizing so much and preparing you to face the pandemic before? Yeah, so we may lose certain opportunities here because we were not prepared for this. Yeah, but What are we prepared for then? That's his questions. Yeah. So that's why you will see in this CCUB 2163 is an opportunity for you to be exposed and be really prepared and engage with the community beyond as just a Saturday, Sunday, beyond just a club-based or society-based activities. Is part and parcel as an integral part of learning, right? So with these kind of questions, we move then, yeah, in the previous class that to look at the specific issues of sustainable development, right? Okay, but before that, it is important to, with that question in mind, that we always have this at the background as well. Yeah, why do we need to learn? Why? Because in all the courses, always have this in mind: that the question of how, the question of why, the question of what, the question of how. Yeah. So when we found the answer, when we convinced the why do we need to learn, as Muslim, of course, we need to learn. Yeah, that is what Iqra means. Yeah. What have you learned? So for us to reflect the questions and also to reflect what have we learned. Yeah. The question, the last question that we put before this. Yeah. Have we learned to face pandemic? If not, then why not? All right. So, and how do you learn? How do we learn all this thing? Yeah, we may learn it in the classroom in a formal way. We may learn it in a very informal way. There are several ways of that. Yeah. But what kind of learning that is impactful? What kind of learning that you will remember? Yeah. What kind of learning that you will treasure? The experience from beginning and until the end of learning process, and maybe even until the end of our life. There's some moment in that university time that you may recall that you learned the most. Okay, and this happened to me. This happened when get engaged with the community. Yeah? In the classroom, sometimes we can recall, especially subject which is quite technical, subject which is quite theoretical, but we believe that if you go yourself to the community, face the questions, face the problem in the community, do it yourself, then the process of learning is taking place better. And after that, the most important question is that, have we practiced the ilmu? Do we put it into amal? And that ilmu is nothing unless it's put into amal. Yeah. So, and we will be questioned in the akhir. Yeah. And what have we done with the knowledge that we get? We put into practice or not? Yeah. All right. So with these kind of questions, it's good for us to reflect. Yeah. The kind of learning, the kind of process that we go through, what kind of learning that is best for us. Okay. Now, going to the issues of sustainable development. Yeah. With those kind of questions, it brought us into the next level of question, that is the kind of knowledge that we receive and the problem that is out there. So it's always to compare that, what are the knowledge, how is the process of learning, why are we learning, and compare that as against what is the problems out there in the society, what is the problems out there even in industry. Are we answering, are we preparing ourselves to those issues, problems, and solutions for that? Yeah, we know the problem of that, of outside there, is because there is unsustainable development, right? So we've discussed on one whole semester what is unsustainable development. So to recap, yeah, in order to prepare us in a common ground and somehow recall what we have learned before, to prepare us for the community engagement, is that we know the problems out there, yeah, can be divided generally into three aspects: environmental problems, economic problems, and social problems. And the same way of looking at it: environmental solution, social solutions, and economic solutions. Yeah. What happened out there is that people have lived beyond, exceeding the limitation, the ability of the earth to regenerate itself. It's breached the capacity of the earth to regenerate itself. Environmental problems, environmental degradation, environmental issues so much rampant. We've got the flood, we've got the landslide, and we even have in our university the whole, yeah, the sunk hole. So this is the kind of realities, environmental issues, environmental degradation that is happening right in front of us. So it's time to reflect. What are we doing about it? Right? Are we engaging in solving the problems, or even are we even talk about it in the classroom? Are we being taught about the issues in the classroom? Yeah. And other than that, yeah, to see it from the social aspect, from the economic aspect, it's quite common to see these kind of scenarios. Right? You can recall this. Need for me to go into that detail into this. Yeah. Here we see the issues of inequalities, issues of injustice. Yeah? Certain segment of the society is enjoying the benefits of the economic cake, economic benefit, and some are being left behind. Right? We can, like we always talk about that. Yeah, so nothing wrong with having that KLCC, but it is wrong if next to it there are so many people still are not having access to food, are not having equal access to development. Right? So this is what we mean to look at to say unsustainable development. Yeah. So I'm sure, hopefully, you can still recall and remember the kind of major principal issues that we have learned about in last semester. Right. A bit detail to that. We'll see when we see this from the equality and inequality perspective from in the economics paradigm, is that the challenge, the issues of unsustainable development, because we fail to differentiate between issues of equality and equity, right? So we cannot be treating everyone equally, right? And at the same time, we do admit that people have to have equal access. But behind this, apart from that, as straightforward as that, we also need to see that some people are living in a different kind of conditions from the other group of people, that we need to treat them differently. And this is what it means by equity. Yeah, they need to be treated based on their background, based on where they are, right? But many economic opportunities out there are usually given an access to those who have already, not the have-nots, those who have the capitals already. Yeah? And there's no push to ensure that those who have not are given the access for that, are given supports for that. Right? So this is what you mean by equity. Right? All these people need access to economic development, need access to economic growth. Right? So then only you have that sustainable development. From the social perspective, yeah, here what we are highlighting in the context of unsustainable development is the price of economic development should not be making certain group of people become poorer, should not be sidelining, or should not be leaving behind any group of people. Yeah? Classic example would be cuttings of trees, yeah, for logging, example, yeah, and even for development, even for constructions. If the cutting of that trees cause certain group of people has to move out from that area, then their social stability there is being threatened, right? So whatever development or whatever economic development for economic purpose, not only right, to take care of the environmental aspect, but also to consider what is the social implication of that, right? So here, if I can conclude there, is that when we talk about sustainable development, is good to is what we need to recall is that how do we find the balance between the two? If you remember the this diagram, how to be in that yellow sections of that Venn diagram, and that is what sustainable development is. Okay, all right. So, and as I said just now, before this, that the pace of economic growth and the pace, the lifestyle of people living in this planet has gone beyond the ability of the Earth itself to provide stability, to provide to regenerate itself, to somehow absorbs the wastage, absorbs all the activities of human being. And that happened in 1970s. So imagine now we are in 2022. Yeah. All right. So to conclude in this recall of what is sustainable development in general. I'm sure if you want to go to detail, you still have your notes, and lecture notes and activities that you have done before. Okay? So there are four usual definitions of what is sustainable development. Okay? One, the very common one is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generation to meet their own needs. Yeah, this is the very common definitions of this of sustainable development, meaning that the development that we are enjoying now, yes, you can, but not at the price of future generations. Let's say my grandchildren, my children, my grandchildren, your children, and your grandchildren must be able to enjoy the same beautiful river, the same air, the same clean air that we are breathing in now, right? So if that development is jeopardizing that, that is unsustainable development, right? The other definition is that it's just another way of the good life, yeah? So that's why it's not just about environmental issues, yeah? A high level of human well-being, a high level of ecosystem that usually refer to environmental aspect, but number one, a high level of human well-being. Yeah? That's where when you have the balance between all the three factors, we should be able to have the well-beingness among the people. Okay. The other definitions is any development activity can be sustainable if it is a dynamic process which enable all people to realize their potential. Yeah, that's well-being. Yeah, not only well-being, beyond more than well-being. The other way of looking is that everyone has the ability, has the opportunity to optimize, to live their potentials, right? And how would that happen if the ecosystem is not conducive enough, right? So that's what we mean by sustainable development as well. Okay, and the fourth one is to improve the quality of life while living within the carrying capacity of ecosystem. Somehow it's been breached already, yeah, but to mitigate or to reduce the impact, we've got to change our lifestyle, right? And there are five dimensions of summarizing how do we look at sustainable development goals. Yeah, people, the planet, the prosperity, the peace, and partnerships. Yeah? People, as we can see, issues of poverty and hunger, they're also all addressing the issues of people. The planet, especially the environmental aspect. Yeah? Prosperity, looking at it from economic opportunities. Yeah? The peace is human rights and etc. Yeah? And partnerships. Nothing will happen if there's no partnership. There's no cooperations among all these stakeholders, is among everyone. Yeah? So that's the five dimensions of sustainable development goals that we had also discussed in detail in the previous semester. Okay, this is what are the 17 goals that we are referring to. Yeah, it range from issues of no poverty until partnership that we just talked about. Yeah. And in Islam, of course, yeah, this is what we have already talked about too. Yeah, that issues of sustainable development is nothing new in Islam, and this is what that Islam has been preaching, has been talking about. Yeah, has been advocating, has been practicing. Yeah? From the economic perspective, we've got all the mechanisms. Yeah, zakat and sadaqah. Yeah, we've got the takaful, we got wakaf. Yeah, prohibitions of riba. This is how Islam's address the issues of unsustainable economic development, right? Then if you look at environmental aspect, yeah, the concept of halik, the concept of mizan, yeah, and the concept of sustainable use of natural resource. Yeah, we know that we should not be mubazirin. Then we know that creation, this is all, everything is creation of God, and we've got to take care of it. Yeah. In terms of social aspect, in terms of social sustainability, yeah, the concept of Khalifa. Yeah, every one of us is Khalifa, and for that we are responsible socially to everyone. Yeah, and the concept of Mushawara, the other one that maintain the social sustainability among us. There is a consultation. Yeah, and of course the concept of ukhuwah. So here we'll see that we've spent a lot of time, 2 weeks at least, in the previous class, how we would like to see that Islam has all solution for this. Okay, and more than that, yeah, the other way that we have discussed too, and also need to have the further emphasis to when we talk about the sustainable development is that we have discussed about hablu minallah and hablu minan nas and hablu minal alam. Yeah, but what happened usually is that emphasize so much on hablu minallah and hablu minan nas. Yeah, but we a bit of lacking in terms of hablu minal alam. Yeah. In this course, CCUB 2163, yeah, what we'll be emphasizing is also on the relations with human being, and that's what we mean by fardu kifaya, community engagement, and also the relationship with the environment, with the surroundings. Yeah. Yeah, and we've got again the concept of mizan that was explained before. Yeah, finding that yellow in the Venn diagram before is the same thing in Islam too. We've got to make balance between the need for environmental, social, and economic aspect. Okay, now with that kind of background, what is the relations then with community engagement? Okay, so we know that all these things would not be sustainable if we just hope for the government, for United Nations, or for anyone other than ourselves, anyone other than community to make sure that it is sustainable. Yeah. So what what we mean here is that in this context of sustainable development or sustainable development goals, what is becoming more important is the role of the community themselves. Why? Because they are the one who hold the ground, hold the fort on the ground, and they are the one either they are doing the destructions, yeah, they are the ones who protect of any of the destructions. Yeah. We may have policymakers that makes the law, yeah, but with good enforcement, it may be. Yeah? But without the enforcement, who's going to make sure that waste are properly treated? Who's going to make sure that trees are not cut with no purpose or no reforestation? What? Because of that, that is why we need to empower the community. Empowering the community means that everyone has to be aware of issues of sustainable development. Everyone has to have the skills, the values, the right attitudes, the right knowledge in upholding sustainable development or sustainable practice. So for that, students, we ourselves, being a member of the society, are supposed to be part of the community. And for that, don't you think that is very important? Not just a partial thing, that for us to be prepared, for the students to be prepared to jump into the society. That's the real life. Yeah. So I hope it highlights how important is this process of community engagement, right? Because all this, while we may have been given an impression that community engagement is just social response and corporate social responsibility, for example. Yeah, but it is not. It's supposed to be part and parcel. It's supposed to be an integral component of learning. And in fact, university and community is not supposed to be disconnected. Yeah? They are supposed to be together. Yeah? Because that's where the purpose of university is to serve the society. But if the students are not working for the community, are not being trained, are not being exposed, are not being nurtured to be a good member of society, only when they are finished, when they are done, then suddenly they've got to go to the community. Then that's not a good strategy of preparing good graduates or balanced graduates. Yeah. Okay, for that, we hope that you see that kind of transformations that I used the word before, and more than that, what we're going to of learning, or the usual way of putting what need to be taught, what need to be acquired, what need to be what is needed for the students to learn while they are in the university. Yeah, so this kind of change is urgent, right? And with COVID, with the pandemic, nobody would argue the kind of skill that is needed for everyone to be able to somehow live with the community the best they can, help the community the best they can, because they are not only to help, but they are part of the members of the community, right? So again, I would like to emphasize, how much are you being prepared for this? How much have you seen this component of serving the community, working for the community is being emphasized by uh, by our teacher before, right? So if you look at the realities, how much have we changed the curriculum? How much have we changed the process of learning in university? That's why this course, CCUB 2163, Usrah in Action, is somehow very much emphasizing the action part. Okay, all right. So what are the kind of disruptive approach that we're trying to put up in this CCUB 2163? Yeah, you will see lecturers are being involved from different kuliah, and then in your section you will see that people are learn not only from one kuliah too, which is very rarely happen, which you may not have experienced this apart from your NGS. You just live among your kuliah and only talk to students of your engineering, for example, or human science, for example, only, or only on pharmacy. But again, I would like to emphasize that problems out there can never be segmented in that manner, because it's so interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary. So is it not time for us to start looking and learning from each other disciplinary perspective and get to learn if the problem is that way, how is the other disciplinary comes in? And that means that it is interdisciplinary perspective to it, right? All right, so that's also covered number 2 as well. You will see that in your at least 2 kuliah would get to live together. And because we want to break that kind of silos. Gone the days whereby you can really live from disciplinary perspective, not to deny the need for disciplinary perspective, but the problems out there need interdisciplinary perspective. The third approaches of implementation that we have that hopefully will contest the conventional way of doing things is to have both approach, face to face, and we would allow hybrid as well, and also if need be, and of course in this class, you do have to meet all the 14 weeks in person, but you can do an online meeting as well, because now we are really adjusting to different need of people. Some people now, for example, they may have issues of being positive COVID, so they cannot face to face, but we need to provide the online class. I mean the Zoom, so that for example, for the students who are being infected. And the last one is we believe in the experiential learning. All right, you may stay in UAE for 4 years, but there might be one community project that really touch your heart, and you remember that forever. Instead of the 4 years of classroom-based learning, that you may not really catch what are the kind of values that need to be exposed to there, compared to 1 week or 1 day of staying with a homestay family, for example. And that's what shapes your character. That's what shapes your values. You can spend 3 years class, or 1 semester, 2 semester class on about ethics and values, but not necessarily you acquire that until you really get to the ground, talk to the people on the ground and see whether it's been practiced or not. Okay. All right. So I'll go quickly on the course outline so that you can have some ideas. What will you go through for this semester? Okay. All right. This course of CCUB 2163 intend to increase students' awareness and knowledge on their duties and responsibility as Muslim in relation to Fardu Kifaya, practice and kids. Translated in concept community engagement. There are two keywords there. One is how Fardu Kifaya. So if you can, the original course of this is called Usrah Budi 3. it talks about the Fardu Kifayah and of course several other aspects of knowledge as well, Islamic practice. But here, what we want is that having learned that part, being being an imam, the most handling janazah, and what else? Yeah, penyembelihan, slaughtering, all those kind of practice need to be put on the ground, yeah? Not just learning in a small circle within the campus. Yeah, this will not be really tested. So this course is about putting that learning, putting that practice, putting that ilmu into amal together with the community, right? So that once you are there for real, then you don't have problems to implement it or to do it. Yeah. And the second part of it is that the community engagement part, right? So hopefully by now you have seen how importance of community engagement and the concept of community engagement. And there you need to do profiling and mapping of that particular community, so that for you to really know what is the actual problem of the society. Yeah? For us to do da'wah, for us to do the amar ma'ruf and nahi munkar, we really need to know the community that we are dealing with. We cannot just go there and do our preachings. Yeah? That's not the way it is. Yeah? The Prophet spent so many years understanding of the community, then only start preaching. Okay. All right. You also see that the course is talking about the knowledge, attitude, values, and skills that is needed to be a good member of society or community, right? And what is most important is that finally, how you can live together with the community. Why? Because when you're living together, that responsibility of Khalifah is always there. And you'll be accounted for that. How much have you fulfilled your roles of Khalifah? And at the same time, regardless whether they're Muslim or non-Muslim, that concept, that spirit of Rahmatan Alamin is there. So that's where you see that though some people might, and we know for sure that the credit, if you compare the credit for this class and other classes, is not as many, as big as the other subjects. But inshallah, right, the kind of responsibility, the kind of learning, the kind of engagement is a platform to allow you to fulfill your responsibility. And that's worth thousands credit more than just maybe 3 credit compared to these subjects. Yeah. So I really hope that all students understand the background, understand the purpose of this class. Yeah. Right. We'll find ways of how to compensate, inshallah, that credit that is there for the subjects to be more meaningful. Okay, this is the CLO. Yeah, it is important that you go through this and really understand and ask and have discussion about instructor beginning from next week. Yeah, demonstrate the concept of Fardu Kifayah sustainable development through community profiling. I've said that, perhaps touched on that before. Yeah, so basically, what we're trying to put here is try to emphasize the importance of Fardu Kifayah, and within the context of sustainable development. That's the value add thing in this course. Yeah. Translate the understanding spirit of Fardu Kifayah through community engagement for sustainable development. Yeah, meaning that you've got to translate that into actions. But of course, in this UIE1, you are not yet expected to carry out the projects. It's only for you to identify the problems, to identify the specific projects of that particular community, and put up a proposal how you can handle it next semester. Right? That's how the whole flow of the 3 subjects. Learning methods. Yeah, we hope to have these classes as dialectical, interactive as possible, and of course, it's experiential learning. Right? We want you to go down to ground, as you can see from UNGS 1201, 50% assessment. Yeah, is when you get to deal with people on the ground. All those is within the community. Yeah. The assessment method is reflective journal. That's one. You got to write at least 2 journals as a reflections of the whole process of learning, or one particular lecture, and then at the end of that lecture, you're supposed to come up like a few hundred words of reflections. And then you need to do the profiling of that community, the mapping of that community, and presentations and project paper, right? So basically there are one reflective journal and then community profiling, presentations and project paper, right? It looks quite a number, but basically it's just reporting what you're doing, right? So we are not going to be very detailed looking at, we're not going to be very strict, yeah, looking at the very strong academic literature of all what you write. It's more of reflection, what you go through. And then also, how do you deal with the community? The recordings of that. That is more important because we are recording, we are letting you go to community and you yourself undergoing the learning process. Okay. And this is a specific detailed divisions of the assessment. And go through that. Reflective journal 15, documentation of that. We've got 9 topics actually, yeah. But for these 9 topics, it's up to you for your arrangement with the instructor, yeah. How many times you want to meet, yeah, for the addressing the issues, for discussing the topic, yeah. Okay. But we do have suggestions at the end to both students and instructors. How do you want to go about it, yeah. But this course is the one that have the highest level of flexibility between in terms of the timing, in terms of the venues, and how many weeks you want to meet up, and what time you want to go to the ground. Yeah. So the first week, like tomorrow week, is a recall of the sustainable development concept as to how I've done just now, and then next week will be Islam and community engagement. Okay. And then in this Islam and community engagement, we hope to go deeper in terms of the concept of participation and its a component, and then the sustainability concept in Islam in terms of community engagement too, yeah, the communal responsibility of Muslim. And then the third component that is equally critical is to discuss about community profiling. What are the approach? What are the strategies? Yeah, and what is the difference between community engagement and community empowerment and community transformations? Yeah, the ideas is that we don't want the student just to do the clean up for any public places, for example. Yeah? We want to go beyond that. We want you to somehow engage and really get to know the family, the community there. Then only you can do a substantial process of knowing them, doing da'wah in terms of preaching about Islam, advocating about Islam, and teaching about Islam, whatever that we have in comparison to them, if we have. Yeah. Otherwise, is how to train yourself, how to make yourself live very productively, yeah, and positively as a students of International Islamic University with the community, right? With the intention that later on, that's how you will be contributing to the community. And then the other component is for you to go down to community, right? And that's where the real happening, real process of learning, hopefully, for you to get to know the community, to do the profilings and mapping of that community engagement one. Yeah. Then you come back after going down to the community and do discussion or small seminar within your section with the instructor, just to present your findings of that community mapping, community profiling. Yeah. Right, and then you go for community engagement too, yeah, for you to do at least one activities with the community. The first round is get to know them, do the profiling, do the mapping, yeah, and then the second round is for you to do the event with them. Event in a way that can be just a discussion with a group of people there, get to know them, and then maybe if you can do that over a jama'ah, all right, and if there is any gathering that happen there, or maybe you can organize a gathering there so that you can show and you can practice the fardu kifayah that you have learned before, or you have learned in this coming subjects, this coming semester. And last one is for you to present, yeah, all the final projects proposal that you have. So these are the 9 subsections that need to happen. How do you divide them is for you to discuss with the instructors. And the instructors will have to somehow talk and with the students. Which week are you all meeting? Yeah? Whether you want to do them all straight 9 consecutive weeks and then you're done with it, right? Or you want to stagger it somewhere in the middle, yeah, in between, right? So there's the discretions of the instructors and the students. Okay, so an easier way of illustrating this is how you can see here, yeah, in the screen, on the screen. That is these 2 weeks will be asynchronous mass lecture. Yeah? You can watch this anytime, but of course the lecturers, I mean the instructors and you would have to pick up the discussions, and I'm sure that you have questions over what I have talked about. Yeah, and then the 3rd and 4th week, this is our proposal. Yeah, briefings on the community profiling, and then the 5th to 6th week community engagement. Yeah, if you think you can do and you can squeeze this to your time, maybe just in one meeting. I mean, these 2 weeks in your one meeting, up to you, right? But the instructor would know what need to be there, what kind of content that need to be decided, what kind of input, what kind of output is expected. Yeah, and then week 7 and 8, and it goes on. Yeah, finally, yeah, is the ultimate outcome of the course is the project proposal that you will be carried out next semester or the following semester. Okay. All right. So I would summarize what I've talked about, almost, yeah, an hour. The main expectation of this course is, one, hopefully, inshallah, yeah, you have an experiential learning that you would remember the learning outcome throughout your life, right? The 4 years, at least you can remember. Yeah. I believe and I hope that from the UNGS 1201 class, you can recall how important is sustainable development, how important is to take care of the environment, and what is your role. So here in this class, we would expect that how important is for you to be engaged with the community and to learn to do that, not when you are graduated already, or not just as an activities of the club that you are in, but it's a formal learning. Because what we have in mind now is that the graduates of UIA will have been exposed, are very well trained in terms of every one of them, not just by to those people who are active in club and society, but to everyone. Because the job of Fardu Kifaya is for everyone. And of course, I mean, if you talk about comparing Fardu Kifaya, Fardu Ain, Fardu Kifaya is when you get someone done, then someone doing the job is considered done. But you don't know who is that someone to do that. So we're assuming that, or we hope that UIA graduates are the one who are doing, who are the someone, because they are supposed to be more exposed and more knowledgeable compared to the others, being a graduate of UIAM, right? That's the first component. The second component is the engagement of community in the ground. And that's why we hope for you to have the experiential learning at least twice. One to do mapping, and the other one is to do the gathering, where somehow while you get to know them closer, right? Because you will be coming back to them and next semester, right? The following semester. 3 expected outcome is the Fardu Kifaya, practice of Fardu Kifaya at the identified community. So we hope, yeah, you will be able to find or create a gathering or create an activity so that you will be able to perform any of those Fardu Kifaya, at least to Salat Jama'ah and be the Imam in that area, in that community. Okay, that's just an example. There are many other Fardu Kifaya as well. It's not just Salat Janazah. It's more than that. Yeah, taking care of the environmental aspect of that community as areas as well. Profiling of the identified community. Why do we need this profiling? Because the UIA students going to be there at least for the next 4 or 5 years for that particular project. We need to have a detailed profiling of each member of that community if possible, if not the family there. All right. So it's the same concept of our responsibility to our neighbor, to our jiran. We need to know every one of them because it's our responsibility as well. And of course, the third one is the project proposal. Okay, and the time and venues of class are based on instructors, students arrangement. I said that before, so it's for you. So you need to have a very close contact, close relation with the instructors for you to decide how you want to run the whole semester. You've got 9 topics to cover, and then 9 topics mean nine sub issues to talk about, but it doesn't mean that you've got to meet for all 14 weeks. It's up to you how to pick up all those 9 components, and at the end come up with the 3 expected outcome. So inshallah, with that, I hope that you have better understanding what is the purpose of this class. Yeah, again, I would like to emphasize that we are working towards giving more recognitions of students who are doing this, because we know that the credit that is assigned to this class is not as much, not as many as the other subjects, but the kind of responsibility of us as Khalifa, as members of the community, this is the platform that are given for us to fulfill that responsibility. So inshallah, what we're looking for is not just that credit, yeah. It's what we're looking for is more of how we are given an opportunity to fulfill our responsibility, and also how we prepare ourselves to work for the society and with the society, with the community, inshallah. So, and secondly, you are assigned or you have chosen the kind of projects that you are interested in. So that projects, the idea is it will be there, right, as a basis for you to work with that community. Yeah, from that projects you need to develop. Yeah, we hope to develop a good relationship, a good rapport between you and the community, right? And that's a, please treat that platform as your Fardu Kifayah platforms to fulfill the responsibility, right? So, and that project has to be brought to your connection, to your disciplinary perspective, to your formal educations and activities, but it has to be taken up seriously as a formal input, as a formal platform for you to give input from your disciplinary perspective too. Say, for example, you are from Kuliah of Engineering, is for you to see how you can practice the knowledge that you have. Otherwise, you go back to the question about what have you done to your knowledge that you have, right? So, inshallah, yeah, you will stay with that project for 2 semesters, this semester and next semester. Right? So, hopefully, you will be the same group of people, and you start still with that community, and then some that you can contribute something to that community. And inshallah, hopefully, with that, this kind of community engagement, not only that we fulfill our responsibility as Khalifa, not only we fulfill our responsibility of translating our amal into actions, but we create the rapport, right? And then you will get the most experiential learning that is possible out of these projects. Yeah. Inshallah, Allah will reward us more than the credit that is assigned to the subject, inshallah, right? So I'll see you again next week, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.